Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Say It Sister podcast, where Karen and I, two old friends, gather every week to have the conversations we'd normally have in private about the things that really matter to us. And we share them with you out loud, and we would love to hear your thoughts on the topics that we are sharing. So this week's topic, well, it's a conversation about living life on our own terms. And look, we are Gen X women, and we grew up being told that we could have it all. And we had the whole music backdrop with the lyrics about freedom and peace and unity. You know, the iconic Belinda Carlisle's words of "live your life, be free" are going around in my head right now. And then we had George Michael, and all he sang about was freedom. And then on our during our nurseries, we had the Rolling Stones verses of "I Am Free." Yet here we are in 2026 and looking back on our lives, knowing that we are more free than any generation before, but there's still a lot holding us back. We're still caught up in societal conditioning that has kept us all a little bit trapped. So perhaps for our generation, midlife is really a coming of age story. Rather than back in the day when it was all about the teenager and the breakfast club, this is our time. This is when we finally step into ourselves and we begin to live the life on our terms. So let's say hi to Karen, who actually brought this topic to the table. Hey there, you all right?
I'm very good. I just got back from 3 days of living life on my own terms in Mallorca, celebrating my 50th, and the concept going into from the concept to the reality of doing exactly what I want when I want, eating what I want, saying yes to that, no to that, quick decisions. It was just wonderful. So it was definitely a time of, wow, I can dream and I can design my life differently and I can create these windows or these pockets of life that feel very much like a space of liberation, and it is all possible, but it doesn't come easy. So, for me, like, this whole topic of living life on my own terms requires a lot of planning and a lot of commitment, and also like being willing to sort of go, I actually want that for myself. I want to have those experiences again, like I used to when I was younger. I want to feel free again. I don't want to feel like I'm shackled or trapped. I want to feel like I can see something and do it and book it. So there's a lot of, like, for me, this is a time of refocusing, and it's a time of just being myself, being true to my own needs, being true to my desires, even if it feels like it's a 3-day window, and then working out how I can unfold that, in everyday life as well. I feel like for me, this is about me being Karen, me being the woman that I already am. And it's about not apologizing for my dreams and for my visions, and then being very determined that I will make something happen. And it's not about being a harmonizer for me anymore. It's more about, I have this dream, I have this need, and how am I going to get there? What do I need to make it happen? And not apologizing for it, and not apologizing for the fact that I'm not done yet. I think we had this, I don't know about you, but like, it was like, a woman in her 50s, and maybe this is for every young person, feels like, it's like, oh my God, your life is over. And I remember looking at my mum when she was 40 and thinking she was really old. And now I'm here in my 50th year, and I'm just like, oh, it's such a lie. Who says we can't live the life that we want to live? And who says we can't go out and reach for our dreams again? And in fact, this is very much the work that we're doing together with women. And it's like each stage and each phase of life is different. It does feel different. And I would say every 7 years or every 10 years, it feels like I go through this huge shift. But every year I always re-question myself and say, what do I want now? Like, what's my vision? And, where do I want to go, and who do I want to be associated with? And so I do that every single year. So in a way, I'm redesigning my life every year, not just, because I'm probably in menopause, like it's a different thing. So I think it's really, really healthy for us to sort of take a deep look at ourselves and say, this is where I am. This is what I want. And these are the steps that I'm going to take. And the only way we can do that is if we're really honest with ourselves. And something keeps coming up for me every time I hear, like, the phrase women of a certain age. I feel like it's just so toxic for women because it's almost saying it's like a shh, don't mention, like it didn't, it used to be don't mention the menopause, don't mention it. It's like the change, so it was given a different name, which totally diminished the phase of life that menopause is, made
You
it
know what? Let's
smaller.
just be clear though. It's only men who are using that women of a certain age,
Yes.
really. And they're trying to use it as a slur. Um, and I absolutely agree. Let's just ban it because I don't think women have ever used that phrase about
No,
another woman.
no.
It's definitely a slur. So yeah, let's just ban it
And
on
I
our
think,
own terms.
yeah, and it's just about really owning it, owning every single part, like, and being like, I was in perimenopause last year. Now I'm in menopause. Like, I'm going into that like other phase, and I want to own it. I don't want to be like, oh, ooh, I've gone from perimenopause that still feels quite young and youthful, and now I'm in like, postmenopause actually, and underneath this color of this hair is white. And whilst I'm still dyeing my hair, I just really want to own it and be like, I don't want to lie about things. I just want to be truly present in who I am. And, for me, there's just this whole thing around craziness and women. And I think women fear being seen as crazy. And I also have that. Sometimes I'll look at pictures and I'll think, oh, I look like I'm having too much fun, or I look like I'm slightly like like crazy in that picture. But actually, that's a big part of who I am because I've always been somebody who can, like, because I'm a sensitive type, if there's excitement in the room, I'll be one of the first people to feel that excitement. And then I'm almost like I've gone off like a firework in the corner. And I've always been like that. I can sense anything. And those feelings are so strong in my body that when I'm like untapped, I just go. And I go quite big and quite bold. The rest of the time, I'm pulling myself back to try and not be that. And it's like a
Do you know what? I
tension.
have to say, last year when we did our photo shoot for Wise Women Lead, um, I mean, being on camera, it's always a bit icky for me. But a lot of your photos that you were taking, you felt much more in your power when you weren't smiling and you were looking quite intensely at the camera. But my favourite pictures are the ones where we had the confetti and you're
Yeah.
just laughing and we're dancing and your radiance comes out. Now, I didn't see that as crazy at all. I just saw that as just beautiful and heartwarming. So it's really interesting the word crazy because I've never seen crazy from you. And I'd like to invite more of that craziness out. Did somebody call you crazy or
Yeah.
tell you crazy energy? Ah, okay, that's where
So,
it's come from.
well, when I was in, I was 28, I got given this huge promotion. I was, like it was incredible, really. I look back and I go, wow. And I was head of department, but I was really good at my job. I was highly creative and all the rest of it. But I also had a very wild streak, and I've always had that wild streak. And so there was a part of me that was crazy and wild and, living life to her fullest expression. And so there was like some people in the team who were in another team that used to call me crazy with a K, like Crazy Karen, and they'd be like, "Hey, crazy," and I'm really making myself like sound like I'm in the 80s here, but I laughed and found it hilarious, so it was almost like there was a part of me that really enjoyed being the crazy one, the one that was like really full. But actually, I think some of it was a performance as well. I know that the real wild one inside of me isn't looking to perform. She's just like there when she comes through. She's so much fun, and it's not a performance thing. And I think I got into the performance of crazy when I was younger because I felt like that was the expectation that people, I had to be the good time girl. I worked hard, I played hard. People looked to me to sort of like bring the party almost, and I did that for a long time, and then I was like, I'm done with that. I don't want that anymore. But there is a wild part of me that is like cannot be contained. And when she comes through, it's really quite wonderful actually. And I
Yeah,
normally have that.
more crazy Karen, please. That's what I'm demanding.
Tell me
Because
about your stuff though. Like what are you hiding from the world that will serve in a different way?
um so when you mentioned this topic and maybe some of the questions that are coming up, it really struck me actually because um over my lifetime, the things that I've been uh, told is that I am too much, that I am a force, that I'm too driven. Or, there was definitely you're too opinionated because I've always had this justice, there's things that I deeply care about. And me and my daughter were talking about this the other day because we saw something about the how oh, it was Zulu, that's right. So I watched Zulu, this epic film, when I was probably about 12 or 13, and whoever I was with was like, oh, wasn't Michael Caine amazing? And I was like, it's horrendous. The treatment of those people. We went to their land and we treated them like this. So I've always had these slightly off the wall kind of different ways of seeing things, and then I was told that I was wrong.
Mm.
And so I guess a lot of my thoughts or my opinions or me joining the dots on things, I learned to suppress because I could see that the world was absolutely fucked up or these people were not acting in a way that was cool. But I learned to suppress all of that. Even though I'd still feel it inside, I never condoned it, but I would allow whatever the behaviour, the treatment, the words that were being used to carry on. That's the part of me that was suppressed. Now, as I've got older and my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD, I also got diagnosed, and I'm like, right, that explains a lot because obviously having a neurodiverse brain, of course I was going to see things a little bit differently. And of course I was going to always be told off for being too much in your face, too loud, too bouncy, all of those things. Um, and so that was the part of me that was suppressed. However, now I embrace the ADHD neurodivergent woman that I am, and I love all of those parts of her. But the bits that I need to let out is being a bit more vocal about my opinions. And if something, and I mean, I do, if anybody says any phobias or isms around me, anything sexist, racist, homophobic, I'm the first one there. But I've learned to challenge it or to name it in a much wiser way now. So rather than burning people, I've got like these embers that are there ready to inflame, or sometimes just give somebody a little bit of a lightning bolt just to put them back in their place. It's
Mm.
much more wise and discerned now. But yeah, it was quite interesting when I was going back and I'm like, wow, I hadn't realised how much I'd suppressed and how much liberating it is when you do actually get a diagnosis. Even like you say, finding out you're not going crazy, you're actually in perimenopause. Having that label sometimes really helps. Like, now I can let my full self out.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because the things that we, living on our own terms looks like being all parts of ourselves. This is what we're saying. And when we suppress a certain part of ourselves because we feel like it's not acceptable or it's not the norm, we actually suppress something that's major and actually what's really needed. Because for you, like your ability to know when something's off and when something's not right and to be able to call that out, when you suppress that opinion, there's something that sort of dies inside of you, I'm guessing. And also then that service point of saying, actually, that's just not acceptable. Is anybody else picking up on this? Like the way that comment that was made or that decision that's just been made is biased, and it's biased against women or it's biased against gay people or whatever it might be. And so that part of you is suppressed, but also it doesn't bring the full picture to the table. And it's the same for me with my wildness. And this is just one part of me. There's many other parts of me. But when I don't allow the wild one in me to come forward, my energy gets suppressed. And actually, often that's what's needed. When something is channeled correctly and we know we have the skills, this is what this stage in life is giving us. It's giving us that sort of skill inside us to say, I've got something to say. This is really important. And I'm going to let the embers rise of that up and I'm going to channel it. And I'm going to use all my skills that I've learned over my lifetime to channel it. For me, wildness is not about alcohol. It's not about partying. It's about a really amazing energy that comes through me that gets stuff moving. And when I'm in that energy, other people feel it. Like I could go into a workshop and lead something that most people would go, I can't do that. That makes me feel uncomfortable. But I'm like, if we're women, we're getting into our bodies. I can take that energy of being in my body, and I can create from it, and women feel safe with me and they will find their own version of it. And so you've got a load of women in a room connecting deeply to their own bodies, to their own sense of who they really, really are, letting that come out maybe for the first time in their lives, and everybody's doing it together, and we feel the impact of that, and it changes us in ways that our brains can't work out yet.
Do you know what? I love that when you and I work together in that sense, because you are definitely the embodiment and give women the confidence to, you go first and then they follow. But I have got the skill of saying the thing. And again, when I say the thing, it then gives others that confidence to go, oh, actually, yeah, that happened to me, or yeah, that's how I feel, or that's what I thought. And so the combining of the head and the heart, or the body and the soul together, it is really phenomenal how yeah, when we bring our gifts together, because we're both quite bold when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, it's the service piece, isn't it? Like, with the CTI leadership model, there is a type that's called the eccentric type, and it's the one that's the most like misunderstood because they see things differently. So everybody's got like a view on something, and then the eccentric types come in and they'll see it completely differently because they're eccentric. And then when we can all hear that, they bring something different. And very often when it's channeled and it's to serve something bigger, it's really, really magical because they've caught onto something that we've all missed, in our other types. And I'll never forget that, because I'll never forget, like, when it's channeled and we're serving a purpose, then we need all these different elements of ourselves to come forward, because otherwise we just get the same one note. It's like going to a concert and just listening to one note on a piano. It's really boring. And actually there's nothing unique about it, and there's no nuances, or,
Do you know what,
the
though?
orchestra's not working.
I don't know about the listeners, but for me, I have always found the eccentric type the more interesting. I'm like kind of drawn towards them, or I just can't stop watching them or listening to them, or observing them, whether it's dance or any creative endeavors. And I also think that everybody has that eccentricity in them, but
Yeah.
they're so caught up and consumed with what will people think, and uh, should I tap my feet at this point? Should I say something now? And they're so caught up in their own heads and questioning that they actually miss all of the really key important information, or that this is your time to move, this is your time to speak. Because I do think that everybody has got part genius in them, but yeah, we just don't let it out. We don't even allow ourselves to go and explore that. And yesterday I was listening to, oh, what is it? It's BBC Radio 2's Morning Love Songs. And this woman came on, I think she was about 47, 48. And a couple of years ago, she'd got divorced, and within the same year, her father had died. So she'd gone through this huge amount of grief. And she was listening to Sunday love songs to, give her hope that there is love out there. Anyway, she said that she spent a year really exploring those untapped parts of herself. And she said she started going to do breath work. She went to a festival. She joined a pottery club. And she was saying about all these different parts of herself that she'd suppressed. And she just thought, I'm going to have a go. And in that, her whole world opened up. And the people that met her in her new version of herself were just all the people that she'd ever wanted, because they were matching her full energy, not the repressed energy she'd had previously.
Mm.
And I just thought, yes, that's a woman living her life on her own terms. So much so that she had to write in and get on the show and talk to Michael Ball and say, this is what is possible for all of us. It was amazing.
Yeah, and that's really touched me. I think it's that, often when we lose someone and we go into that space of like huge grief. Now we've still got our parents, and for me, like, I have this thing on the sort of like, it feels like it's on the shore of knowing that I'm going to lose my parents, and I don't know how many years I've got left with them, and it feels really important to note that life is precious, and life changes and you lose people. And it's really, really important for us to sort of listen to our own needs and to say, who am I? What do I want? Because if not, it's almost like we're wasting some precious time and precious life. And it's really important to me that, I know that for me, like taking care of myself and taking care of my own needs and listening deeply on the inside is what makes my life work. And it's what makes my relationships work. And so, as you're telling that story, I was sitting there thinking, it is about doing that breathwork class. It is about learning something new. It is about the pottery. It is about drawing trees, or you might do your crocheting. It's about all of that. And it's about allowing ourselves to have all of that and not apologizing or hiding it and then talking about it. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's almost like we hide these things away and then it's like a guilty part of us that can sometimes we can get, like you're doing your reading, I'm reading more again. Like, and I'm so loving my books that I'm reading. I've gone for fiction books, but around Cleopatra and Hecate and I'm losing myself in these books in a way that
But
I
time
haven't
traveling is beautiful.
for such a long time. And as I read about it, I almost feel like I'm remembering parts of myself that I abandoned. And for me, that's living life in my own terms. And it's getting into bed and, like spending like an hour reading before I fall asleep. And I can't wait to do that again tonight. And it's like I'm rediscovering me again in a different way to before because I really appreciate it. And I appreciate that I'm here and I appreciate that like my eyes are still able to read because sometimes my eyes hurt, the things that I took for granted before, I don't take for granted, knowing that my parents are on that shore over there and I don't know how much time I've got left. Like, I appreciate now that time in ways that I couldn't before. And it's a really beautiful thing. And I want
It
to share
is.
that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's it is something that plays on my mind, and I'm at that period in my life where, well, my stepdad, who I lived with from about the age of 5, in a couple of weeks he turned 70, so he was the toy boy, and we're going away and celebrating him, and so I've got both my parents, all my parents are in their 70s now. But then I've also got my children at the other end where they're about to go into this adult life and they've both secured full-time permanent contracts and yeah, they're out in the world making decisions. And like Evie said to me the other day, oh, what time do you want me home? And I was like, Evie, you're 18 now, you've left college, you don't need my permission. I said, but if you could come in before 11, because otherwise, you'll disturb me. And it was all good. But I'm like, what's my role in this period? Because I don't yet need to care for my parents because they're fit and able, and my children don't need me so much. And I actually get to live life on my terms every single day because I don't have a partner and I don't have to consider them. So it's a really strange time for me. And as I approach 50, I'm thinking, okay, what is this next decade going to be like for me? Because actually, I've got nobody telling me what I can and can't do. Literally, the only person that would be holding myself back is myself. And
Yeah.
that's quite a lot of responsibility as well when you realize literally I've got nobody else to consider, maybe for about the next 5 years, other than myself. And I mean, that's a gift that not many people get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can feel.
Terrifying, I'm not going to lie.
But what is it that you're doing to support yourself? Because the feeling of fear and the feeling of excitement, it's the same. The difference, I say, is breath, and we can cultivate both. We can both cultivate the fear and we can cultivate the excitement, but just know that they are friends in a way. So where does that take you?
So at the moment, it's less fear. It's more excitement, dreaming up possibilities. And what I'm having to do to contain myself is just to allow myself to dream. So not make any decisions, just stay in the dreaming phase. So like, oh, I could do this and I could do that, rather than I could do this. So how would I make that work? And how much money would I need? And da da da. I'm not allowing that to come in at this stage because what I'm trying to do is open myself up to just possibilities. And like I said, it's a bit of a weird one because the only thing, I mean, like on the extreme of it, it literally is selling everything, buying a camper van, taking my dogs, and literally just driving around the world. because I was thinking, literally, as long as I've got a roof over my head, which could be a van, and a passport, what else would I need? Well, I need Wi-Fi to be able to talk to you and to do this work. But that's literally on the extreme of it. That's what I could do, and I could like be one of these nomad off-grid people who literally has a bit of a hobo, really. But on the other side of it, I'm like, okay, well, actually, I could pour all my energy into the business and just spend 100% of that and just see what comes there. I could write another book. I could actually move abroad. And so then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And our conversation last time, where we were talking about the Edith Eger who didn't write her book until she was in her 70s, it made me realize the more I dream up, actually, hopefully, I've got another 40 years on this planet. Maybe I could do it all. I don't just have to do it all next year or all in the next 5 years. So that's how I'm doing it. I'm allowing the dreams to come and I'm not getting into practicalities yet
I
because
love
that just
that.
squashes it. That's where the fear comes in.
I love that. And I think this is definitely what we're seeing, isn't it? That when we start to look at the money, when we start to look at how we're going to live, how we're going to earn and do all of those things. Now, we know that we need to earn money because that's part of the world that we live in. But as soon as we start to put that stuff in, it squashes us.
Yeah.
And I've made decisions in my life where I've taken jobs because they paid me 20 grand more. And when you look at two jobs in black and white on a piece of paper, and that one's giving me, gym membership, packages, really great pension, um, the 20 grand plus on top of the really good salary. Look at that. And then I looked at the other one, which was really great people, the work I wanted to do. I mean, there were so many reasons, and I went for the money. Now, it was still a good job and all of that, but I went for the money and it was one of the worst decisions I ever made in my corporate career. It was brutal. And I've shared bits and pieces about that, like the woman who was crazy, who was my boss and all of that. So it was the worst decision and it was purely made on paper. It wasn't made on like what was really needed for me and what my heart was telling me because I was so swayed by my head. And it was a massive lesson where I just thought I will never just go towards something because the money's good. We have to be able to sort of bring all the different elements of ourselves together. And sometimes that need to earn can squash absolutely everything. But the way you're telling this story is so beautiful because it's like, well, I could do this and I could do that. And I could actually just be in a van and be happy, and have everything I need because I've got my dogs. And as long as I can get Wi-Fi and I can work, I can still earn money. And it's like, yes, that's the bare
That's as
minimums,
simple
isn't
as
it?
it is.
Like brass
Yeah.
tacks. And I think often we get squashed into these places, like we make the decisions based on what looks good on paper, but actually we've sold ourselves out because our dreams and our hearts have been totally minimalized and ignored. So there's that side of it as well. And what I always love about you is you have this faith in the faith in I don't know what to call it, like the universe to provide or whatever, but like you
Yeah,
have
I just
this.
always think it'll be all right. It's all going to be all right. And if not, you can make a blooming good story out of it along the way. And during COVID, there was like this pretty tough time because clearly, everything dried up. I'd launched my book on the 26th of March, supposed to have this big opening, and I think it was the 23rd of March that we all were told to stay at home.
Oh,
All of my contracts that were supposed to be going out and doing delivery, they all got cancelled, and my whole life changed. So I remember saying to the girls, look, we've got enough money to live on for about 4.5 months. After that, then we might need to make some tough decisions. And the worst case scenario, and I mean, I know I'm very privileged in this, but the worst case scenario was we leave our house, we go and live with my mum, who's got a four-bedroomed house. Um, and if that's the worst case scenario, that we've got roof over our heads with people who love us, I'm doing all right. And I think that's where I get my confidence. And I always said my values were independence, but also with this soft cushion should I fall. And I think that's where I get my optimism from because I always know that there'll be a soft landing and people to love me and care for me. And I know that not everybody has that, which maybe gives that fuck it kind of mentality.
I love that. Yeah, I hear you with that. Somehow things work out, and I think you can see that when you look back over your life, you can see those moments, the decisions that where you quit yourself a little bit, you abandoned yourself, but yet you still ended up, somewhere else. But it was
Sunny
actually,
side up. It all
yeah, the
works out
sunny
in the
side up,
end.
and perhaps. Yeah, I mean, for me, my sunny side up was a hospital, like
Yeah.
was breaking my life. But actually, then that time that followed was a really deeply meaningful time for me, and I ended up learning about like body and health, and I read Louise Hay's book You Can Heal Your Life, and I looked at all of the issues in my life, and I just started working through it, and it taught me so much about what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing, and how my body responds, and how we manifest as well, like how we manifest negatively. Taught me so many things. And at the age of 31, at that time in the world, people weren't talking about manifesting, they weren't talking about healing really. I was always interested, but it was a bit more, again, it was a part of myself that I'd hidden. And so I was allowed to sort of give myself that full permission to be like, no, go read these books. You can't walk anyway. So read the books, get the learning, and then work out the next bit, and then work out the next bit. And I think that's what we're saying, isn't it? We are living our lives today as women, not as women trying to be men, not as women who are hiding parts of ourselves. We're sort of fully out, loud and proud. And we are taking it one step at a time, and we're working out things bit by bit. And I don't think there's anything that could be more honest than that.
No, and this is why I value our conversation so much, because even as you're saying that, I'm like, yes, that is like the mantra I want from every day of my life. And as a nice roundup for our listeners, we hope you take those words, go back and listen to them. They are wise words indeed. And yeah, just try and build that into your life every single day. It's been an absolute pleasure to have this conversation. Hope you've enjoyed it too. Until next time, say it, sister.